This is September 24th, 2025, the second day of fall equinox. And this is the talk that I gave at the Tesla Technology Conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico this past August. And I've worked on this slideshow for quite a while. So I've used it in fact, I think the bare bones of this slideshow were when I did my last interview with Anna Mihalcha, MD, on the space fence. And I've done quite a bit of work to the slideshow since then, but that was the very first time I used it. Used to be that I would make a slideshow for, just everything, because I was moving through the various layers of the technology, and I would come to a new layer, which I recognized as being different from the layer I was just in. And so I would make a new PowerPoint. But now I can honestly say that at this point, for the geoengineering part anyway, everything's pretty much there now in this slideshow. So what isn't in this slideshow that I'm sure you would like me to have in it, but I can't do everything, is the synthetic biology. I don't have much of that at all. I'm primarily trying to give people an idea of how the big sky chemtrails part of this delivery system works, and I think it's pretty good for that. This is just a favorite helical model of how I see, not in the Copernican system anymore. We're in the toroid system, you could call it. We're moving through space at, I think it's something like 70,000 kilometers per minute or whatever, going very fast. And I just start this just to give people a picture of how we're in motion. And all these toroids are being formed by all the planets that go with us in our planetary system. And I really like it because it is how I envision moving through space. It's not like the old system of going around the sun or the sun going around us. It's really a motion of the toroidal. And the toroid, of course, is the name of the game when you're talking about etheric physics. So there you go. We don't have to watch more of that. There is the great Nikola Tesla. And as I always remind people, he, I have my first book, Chemtrails, HARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, the 2014 book, has been translated into Serbian. They were the first to come to my publisher, who was Feral House at that time, and ask for the translation rights. And I think they bought the translation rights for, I don't know, maybe $1,500 or something like that. And they made a very nice copy. I can't read a word of it. It's in Cerulean. And yet the reason that happened is because I am the only one they knew of at that point, and I think still that's true, who was trying to show how the West has weaponized Tesla technology, which of course was really not what Tesla wanted, even though that's misspoken many times. I've heard it again and again that he was into the weapons. No, he wasn't. And I just want to remind you that it's President Trump's uncle, John Trump, who was given guardianship over all the Tesla technology that was basically stolen from Tesla when he was killed, in my opinion, by the FBI in 1943. So there's Tesla. This is the cover of the book I was just talking about. And this book is sold in all the technology colleges in Serbia. It's in the bookstore for people to buy and read. And they do a pretty good business on selling the book. Here's a young man. I hope will be a reader. Maybe he will. There's the cover of the new book. Here is a really sort of very cursory separation of the old science that we're leaving now and the new science of etheric physics that is mostly with those who are, have made the leap in understanding of what happened to that famous time I've said over and over again in the 1920s when the concept of the ether was banned in Western science. And so on the left here we have the Einstein theory of general relativity. The assumptions in this: ether does not exist, the vacuum of space is empty, which of course is not true. Gravity is due to the curvature of space, which also is not true. And the speed of light is constant, which is not true. So it gives you a sense of how radically things have changed in the higher sciences. But it doesn't mean every grad school program is going to reflect this. That's not at all the case. This is only for the enlightened few, perhaps, but at least I don't think it's limited to what are called the Jasons anymore. And the Jasons is a very elite science brotherhood in which scientists are inducted uh, who are um, basically working for the elite. So a lot of secrecy is there, but they too know the real physics. Ether is the basic brick of the universe, and that ether precedes plasma, the creation of plasma. And that time I told you I flew past the moon or some part of me flew past the moon and went up into deep space like chocolate pudding. That was ether that I entered in. It's all around. It's just delicious and wonderful. And ether is, as Rudolf Steiner makes clear, is the life force, elan vital or chi or ki, all those terms that we have for the life force, and is the antithesis of electromagnetics. That's the important part. So when people tell you that humans are electromagnetic beings, that's not exactly true. We definitely utilize electromagnetics, mostly through the brain, but the real our real nature has much more to do with life, namely the ether. And we have etheric bodies, for example. We have an astral body as well, which has a different function from the etheric body. The etheric body is what keeps us healthy and is what certainly the Chinese medicine I studied, the Yellow Emperor's Book of Internal Medicine, the old Chinese system before all the jars full of weird stuff and you take it and you drink a tea, and that's what people think is Chinese medicine. No, the old Chinese medicine very much understood these forces that our bodies are filled with. And I believe that those who are trying to destroy Homo sapiens are also aware of that, at least the occultists who ride high in that particular science brotherhood. Okay, so then the particles, that means atoms, those are actually bits of ether vortex. They're not really like the model that we always see that we've been taught to think is how, the electrons going around the outside, the protons and that sort of thing, the nucleus in the middle. That's all a graphic. but the actual nature is an ether vortex, similar to the vortex you just saw the sun doing or the planet doing around the sun as the sun is making its way through the ecliptic, which is, I think, 20, what is it, 25,920 years. Anyway, I can't remember the exact number, but we are heading through the ecliptic at a great pace. So then the third part is light. The light waves are in the ether, and that's not electromagnetic waves. Light waves are filled with life and elan vital. The electromagnetic are really forces of death that we need in order to think, in order to explore concepts. It's just how we're made. But the light waves and as we call them, the photons, the biophotons, etc., are about the ether. Then you have it says energy, ether movement, slash pressure. I don't know quite what that means. Gravity is an accelerated wind of ether, a very interesting way of looking at it. And the speed of light is variable. So now here are the 7 operations. I'm pretty sure you've all seen these because I constantly refer to this. This is sort of my guide through trying to figure out what does what in geoengineering. This is Clifford Carnicom's system that he came up with in 2005 after about 10 years of studying this technology. So first we have the weather engineering. We all know that. Then we have the chemical electromagnetic engineering. And then we have the planetary geophysical engineering, the directed energy weapons, the surveillance slash neural manipulation. That's basically mind control. Then we have nanotechnology, digital synthetic biology, synbio, transhumanism. That's what I'm concentrating on now. Then the cloaking, obscuration, and detection of exotic propulsion craft. Uh, these are not from the aliens or any of those theories that the CIA came up with, but we have this technology by which we have propulsion craft, and then there's also the plasma life forms that you can find in the work of Wilhelm Reich and Trevor Constable. The book of Trevor Constable is called The Cosmic Pulse of Life. An excellent book. And he has photographs in there taken with infrared film of these amazingly large creatures in our atmosphere. And I think I told you about one that I saw in northern New Mexico of the snake or looked like a serpent of some sort that came out of the sky, wiggled its way out of what looked like must have been some sort of entry or exit point, crawled across a bit of the sky, and then went into another entry to and disappeared into it. So, I mean, I saw that. So I do know that these creatures, and I'm imagining they've been here for many millennia, if not millions of years. But they have plasma bodies, not physical bodies like we do. Okay. Was that enough on that? Because I've got more detail. You see where the fires would be, the directed energy fires that are being used and called wildfires. That would be under the planetary geophysical engineering. Um, any questions? Because I mean, there's plenty of opportunity to go into that because these are my basic operations throughout all the books. And then there's Clifford Carnicom. I put this photo of a fiber next to him. That's one of the old photos, as I recall, that he used to look at. We first looked at them environmentally And then we began finding them in people's saliva and blood. You see the nodes on them, on the fibers. And that was the beginning of looking at synthetic biology, though at that time we didn't have that term. And then, of course, there's Morgellons. I unfortunately don't have a photograph of Morgellons in here, but it's basically a separation coming out of the skin. Because, and if it comes out of the skin, at least in a Chinese medicine way, it would indicate that the liver is completely overwhelmed. That's the only reason it would be coming out of the skin. Otherwise, the liver would take care of it. But the Morgellons and the fibers were the very first things we saw. And he took a lot of photos, and you can find those at www.carnicominstitute.org. And then I mentioned that the transformation of a species, that may have been the first essay he did on what he was sure finally was a transhumanism plan underway through the environment first, and then through the environment reaching into our organism. Here's Clifford. It can be demonstrated that the introduction of essentially any metallic or metallic salt aerosol into the lower atmosphere will have the effect of heating up that lower atmosphere. The impact is both significant and measurable. Those who seek and express concern, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read that. Can you read it where you are on your computer? Is it
Yes.
clear?
Yes.
What does it say?
Those who seek and express concern about the so-called global warming program might wish to begin their search with an inquiry into the thermodynamics of artificially introduced metallic aerosols into the lower atmosphere. An examination of the specific heat characteristics of an altered atmosphere will provide the path for the realistic conclusions that can be made. Any claim that the aerosol operations represent a mitigating influence on the global warming problem appears to be a complete facade in direct contradiction to the fundamental principles of physics and thermodynamics. The lack of candor and honesty by government, media, and environmental protection agencies in response to public inquiry is further evidence of the fictitious fronts that have been proposed.
So you can see he said that in 2004. This is just to remind us of the very narrow aperture we have into the electromagnetic spectrum. That's it. That's all we have. And otherwise, we require instruments by which to read all the way from radio waves and microwaves to gamma rays. And this is what constitutes the power of those who have the machinery and the means and resources by which to obtain and operate the machinery. So that's kind of our situation. This is just to remind us of the hertz is actually 1 cycle per second. It wasn't always called hertz. It was actually called cycles per second. And in my opinion, this was done in order to further confuse the issue around the vanishing of the ether. We often use these terms, the kilohertz, we use the megahertz, gigahertz, and the terahertz.
Non-Hertzian waves, Tesla waves, or scalar waves are longitudinal but can be converted to transverse in infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma. These waves differ from traditional Hertzian waves in their potential to interact with matter at the quantum level.
Now that in itself, we really don't understand that yet, but that seems to be what is going on. Now, there are people who believe there is no such thing as quantum level, who believe there is no such thing as scalar waves, etc. These are people that you can just pretty much ignore. And there is something going on at the quantum level, even with the nanotechnology. They are not entities of this level of reality that we are uh, where we exist. It's kind of like atomic physics, atoms. Uh, all of this makes it sound like they've already discovered all this, they already know these things. No, they really don't. And it's been all very misleading. And so all of this is going to have to be looked at again. But the non-Hertzian waves are basically the transverse waves of infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma. Okay, that's the right end of the spectrum if I'm looking at a electromagnetic spectrum. The Hertzian waves are, oh yeah, the others are longitudinal and can be converted to transverse. The Hertzian waves are the transverse ones. And these are the things that we're most familiar with. And one of the ways that they hide the Tesla tech of the of HARP, for example, particularly regarding earthquakes and things where they're using the scalar uh, means by which they can go through matter, end up on the other side of the earth to bring an earthquake that no one could possibly know was coming from the other side of the earth. Now, that would be by utilizing the electromagnetic of the by utilizing the science that they have that is pretty much hidden from the public and is only even in graduate school programs. So this is important to remember that you're dealing with really two levels of the of waves. Geoengineering serves the secret space program, which includes transhumanism. So yeah, I mean, the secret space program is, I've talked about it. Catherine references it. Uh, so this is I think that, as we know, Mr. Trump has founded the uh, the U.S. Space Force. That is part of the secret space program. Catherine uses another term, which is the breakaway civilization. We are witnessing the breakaway civilization as they gobble up all the resources and profits from, for example, the COVID-19 sham. They made a fortune off of that. And they are establishing a separate, yeah, a separate civilization of their own. I always think of that kind of uh, strange film, Elysium or Elysium. The one, do you know which one I'm talking about?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, because where they have the planet above the Earth is all trashed out. All the poor people live down here. And then they have the med beds up there by which you can regenerate your etheric forces. And if there is indeed a med bed technology that exists, I'm certain that the elite have their own version, and hopefully, that it is true that it exists, that it could possibly be used for very, for particularly children. I would really like to know that could happen. Okay. Then here's Catherine. This is a really good interview in which she talks about the just what I've just been talking about, plus the secret underground bases and the oncoming extinction event. And then I have below it, that's her Tucker Carlson interview that was done April 28, 2025. Very good. This is the Van Allen belts problem.
The Orion test flight liftoff to splashdown, and they basically talk about what needs to be done in order for this project to take place. And so NASA engineer Kelly Smith is on there. He's explaining stuff, but he says something really interesting. So let's check this out.
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Wait a minute. We must solve this issue before sending people through this space? What happened during the moon missions? Didn't they go through the Van Allen belt as well? So I don't know. Just wanted to point out this discrepancy where in this video, this guy is talking about how the equipment can fail and the navigation can fail, and we're going to have to figure this out before we put people through it. Well, what's to figure out? Didn't you guys figure that out like 50 years ago or something? Just very strange that they would say that. Did they spill the beans? Maybe. Well, if you...
So there you go.
Two special guests from International Space Station, Terry Virts, the current ISS commander, and Samantha Cristoforetti, the first Italian female astronaut in space.
Yeah, you probably already know this.
Hi, Terry. Buongiorno, Samantha. Thank you very much for joining us on Euronews. I would like to start by asking how you feel about the other 3 crew members returning to Earth. As the next crew will arrive at the end of March, do you feel a bit lonely up there in space?
You know, it was sad seeing.
And what comes after the International Space Station once its mission is over? How do we ensure the presence of humans in space?
Well, that's a great question. The plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to. And we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
Orion is getting ready to launch.
Oh, et cetera, et cetera. You get the picture. So this I believe in completely. This is the Kardashev scale, and I've mentioned this before. The full spectrum dominance over the Earth first is required for a civilization that has a true space program. So first you have to dominate the Earth, and that has been achieved. It sounds like it because I talk about it in Under an Ionized Sky, the second book, where I mentioned I try to give a picture of how the space fence lockdown works, or as you probably call it, the smart grid. And it has an upper control element, and then it has the down here on the Earth, it has an infrastructure that's completely controlled. But what they mean by full spectrum dominance is over the electromagnetic spectrum. And that includes our electromagnetic spectrum, we, the human beings. Type 1, full spectrum dominance over the Earth. Type 2, full spectrum dominance over the sun. Type 3, full spectrum dominance over the galaxy. So this is actually what they are. Everything is gauged according to this equation of superiority that is essential. And this is what a lot of the people who have all the resources and have the power in finances. This is their great I call it a wet dream because it is true ascendancy. We keep hearing that term, and this is what is meant by it, I think. There's that book, 2018. Still very valuable to read it. Here's the patent for the electromagnetic ring that has been formed and is probably still collecting heavy metals from what is in centrifugal force around the planet, from the aerosols, etc. But it's a very important part of this. And notice that the ring is comprised of magnetic material, and at the same time, here is a facsimile of
Scientists have discovered a human-made barrier around Earth, protecting against the natural particle radiation in space. They believe the bubble was formed by very low frequency waves, or VLFs. VLFs have been found to interact with the particles in space, affecting how and where they move. VLFs are used for radio communications, including with submarines, because they can penetrate deep into the ocean. The waves can also travel far into the environment around Earth. By understanding more about how VLF transmissions help shape our space environment, we learn more about this complex region surrounding us. The more we know, the more situational awareness we have to protect our satellites from natural radiation in space.
So that's pretty much not true, everything he said. It wasn't just found and it sort of magically appeared there. No, they built it so that for communications that have to do with the space fence lockdown. So you've got that up in space. There's magnetite in our brain. Originally, there wasn't. Magnetite it's very tiny particles of magnet. And it was in animals' brains. We definitely noticed that because they use it for navigational purposes in they're going around the planet and moving from one place to another. But now we have it in quantity in our brains, which I can only imagine it's been provided from the chemtrails. With magnetic nanoparticles, scientists can remotely control neurons and animal behavior. And of course, animal behavior includes us. So the magnetics has always been a very big interest of the military for good reason. Here's the other part of it, because there's that magnetic going on up above the planet in this magnetic ring. And then there's all the magnetic, everything coming down from the chemtrails. And then there's this that's in the Earth itself, which is the geomagnetic field. And this particular map that you see here was made by Bruce Cathie, Cathie, who was an amazing mathematician, harmonics mathematician, who was actually made his living in New Zealand as a pilot flying for commercial airlines. And Bruce has three, I think it's just three books, maybe another one. I've read all three of his books multiple times because it's very challenging for me to understand harmonics mathematics. It's definitely not my forte. But I have read his books enough that I feel comfortable saying that this map, and this is just a bit of it, it used to be up on the internet, and you could kind of join by sending a certain amount of money. You would have access to this particular map of the grid. But Bruce died, and then the guy who was running this map at www.worldgrid.net, he died. So I've lost an ability to get hold of this. I do have it on a DVD, but there's nothing to latch onto when I get on the net. So I'm a little it's on the back burner now, but I'm very interested in this. And then this shows you how one of the ways you can see what it takes when HARP or something like HARP activates the geomagnetic grid in various areas. You actually get lightning coming up from the earth, not going down from the atmosphere, but coming up from the earth. And that has to do with the ionospheric heaters and probably the ionosphere would be my guess. Because they would have to be using tomography for this, and to use the tomography by which they make earthquakes happen, they have to bounce signals off of the ionosphere and then make the signal go to a very, very specific, detailed place on the earth as an attack on the plates so that you get an earthquake. So that's probably what they did with Fukushima. This is just a pretty poor graphic, but it does the job. There are all these satellites up there, and there's the space station and various things that are up there. This makes it look like there's lots of space up there. I don't think there is. I think it's just loaded with satellites now, especially since the CV-19 Bluetooth connectivity that is required for all the transhuman experimentees who are being followed assiduously, and their biometrics read multiple times 24/7. But this is kind of how it is up there. It looks much more like a circuit board up there. This doesn't look very circuit boardish, but it gives you the idea of how they're all connected to each other and communicating with each other, and then back down to the earth, like with this consolidated ground station. This is how these various levels of the Earth atmosphere are. There we are in the troposphere. It's the skinny little place that we live. And then the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the ionosphere, and then the magnetosphere is above that. So, each one of these has a different environment, has a different science, if you will, that is overseeing it, that is drawing information from it. This is all a done deal. And they've been working on this ever since the so-called rocket program was introduced with Wernher von Braun in 1937, before the U.S. joined the European War, and certainly before the war was over in 1945. So yeah, they worked a long time on the to create a space program that the scientists that we brought over under Operation Paperclip could could work on intensively for what, 50 years, 70 years, whatever it is. Space fence lockdown delivery systems, just to make it clear what I'm talking about when I talk about delivery systems of the chemicals and the nanotechnology that is needed for the transhuman shift in Homo sapiens. So you've got big pharma and chemical trails from commercial and military jets. You've got drones and rockets. You've got satellites in above the Earth. You've got NexRad radiation on the Earth. Got rain, snow, and fog, which are very useful because they envelop at various places in the environment for a certain time space. And they are particularly pernicious in how they operate on us. Then you've got the GMO foods, quote unquote. It's not real food, it's pretend food. And we've had that for decades. And then you have the inoculations, which are more recent, though the vaccination programs definitely go back 100 years and are part of this transhuman preparation of Homo sapiens for the jump that we have now made since the inoculations, which shot into us the operating systems by which they can electromagnetically control us and the various little machines that are in us with the nanotech. So that's all I've been able to. Those are the big categories. Here we see, just to make clear, the chemtrails versus contrail thing. These are all chemtrails that you see here. In a moment, you're going to see a contrail being laid, which is quite different. And those clouds are all plasma. They are not natural clouds. And then you see this little line here, right there. You see that jet moving along and the dissipation of the trail it's leaving happening almost instantaneously. That is a contrail. We hardly ever see contrails anymore. Now here's chemtrails, and notice that it's not just out of the engine compartment, it's out of the wings as well. You can see what the people are. 5, 6, maybe more than 6. Spigots, rain, chemtrails, and then somebody turns it off, either in the air or from the ground. A lot of them are now doing it from the ground so that pilots don't have to watch the pilots and make sure they're living up to their NDA non-disclosure agreements and so on. And then here's the kinds of clouds we have now. This one's nice and spread out, so you can see the raveled, the edges of the material. These are not the clouds of yesteryear. And you see the serrations here and there. Those serrations are all lined up because those indicate that there's a pulsing activity going on. And certainly we already know that HAARP pulses 4 hertz 24/7. And a lot of that can be seen in some of the particulates of the chemical trail clouds, the plasma clouds that are produced from the chemtrails. And here's another one. And that's a signature by which you know that this is an artificial cloud, a man-made cloud. And then this is why you may not, it may be that we won't see.
An aircraft comprising a gas turbine engine that exhausts a plume of gases in use. The aircraft comprises an ultrasound generator having an ultrasound actuator and a waveguide to direct ultrasonic waves at the exhaust plume to avoid the formation of contrails.
So this ultrasound is, I think, being used quite a bit. I'm not sure where, but people are always trying to talk me into that they don't have chemtrails anymore, and that's just not true. We don't have the technology yet by which we can bypass the use of these nanoparticles in order to keep the atmosphere ionized. This guy has his piece to say, so we'll listen to him.
You've heard me talk about the 5G towers and how it's not for internet at all. It's a microwave weapon developed by the military to be used on the citizens. Take a look at this video.
They started at 9:11 at night until 9:11 in the morning. You see the pulse going from the east to the west coast. All right, boom, you see that? Those are NEXRAD stations. Each of those towers are 750 kilowatts, pumping out between 2.7 to 2.9 gigahertz in the microwave range. This is roughly the same frequency as your microwave oven.
Now, there are tons and tons of whistleblowers coming out about this technology and how dangerous and damaging and deadly it is. This is not for internet. You want to know if it's true? Go right up to one of those damn towers and see how good your service is. It's still going to suck. These things are not for internet service or communications. It's a weapon. They are frying you with microwaves while you sleep. If you saw in the video, did you notice where it wasn't, where they weren't microwaving the population while they slept? All the areas of the country that are the least populated. Is that by accident? Those microwaves just magically don't go to those certain areas of the country? No, there's no reason to do it there. There's very few people that live there compared to the populated areas of the country that have huge cities in them. That's where you notice they are microwaving you to death. Are you feeling sick? Are you feeling lethargic? You can't think straight. You're not sleeping well. You're having crazy dreams. All of this stuff is radiation poisoning. Look up the symptoms of radiation poisoning. You're going to see they identically match a lot of your symptoms that you're having. Funny enough, it also matches a lot of the symptoms of COVID. Crazy how that works. So I'm telling you guys, you have got to understand what's happening. And they're talking about putting up 4 times the amount of towers in the next 4 years. Why would they need that? We can prove that it's not for internet, it's not for cell phone service. So why? You need to start asking yourself, why are they putting these things up at an unprecedented rate and then lying to your face about what they're for? Reach out, let's connect, let's figure out the plan of how we stop this.
So that's a list, a partial list, and all of that is discussed in the second book, Under an Ionized Sky. Here's the chemicals, and the list changes because they decide on certain things every year, and yet it's a very valuable list to see what is in the chemtrails. Just what we've been able to determine is in the chemtrails. This doesn't mean that we have everything that and have been able to find the frequency of everything going on. But it's kind of like the same thing. Well, I'll come to that in a moment, that are in the jabs. I said that we have the control over the jet stream now. We can drag it all the way down into the south. We can take it as far as Central America. But it's mainly the hump that I'm always concerned with here in Washington State is north of me over Vancouver Island. And that's how they manipulate the weather that they pick up from the South Pacific down off the shore of the rainforest, for example. And they make it come up waveguides. They use lasers to create these sort of passageways through the atmosphere that has altitude, and they drag the weather from the South Pacific up north, bypassing California and Oregon, and then 200 miles off the coast, approximately off the coast of Washington, they create weather to bring it east over the continental United States. And that would be, that's heat waves, um, any type of weather, typhoon, or as we call it here, tornado, and earthquakes, etc. So the control of the jet stream is important. Then we saw this, at least 55 undeclared chemical elements found in COVID-19 vaccines. And if I compared the list in this article with my list from the chemtrails, what's in the chemtrails, and there are many, many that are identical. There's HARP. And HARP, have a couple of ways of looking at HARP. This, I like this guy. I don't know who this guy is, by the way, but I like his definition, his understanding of what we're talking about here. So you see the first paragraph, the High Frequency Active Aurora Research Program, and then officially it's called an atmospheric ionospheric research. But truthfully, it's a weaponized harmonic override array. And he says what it does is it disrupts the ionosphere, which isn't just atmospheric, but a planetary frequency membrane. It conducts Earth's brain waves, including Schumann resonance. HARP injects high-frequency pulses that fracture coherence, severing the connection between humans and the Earth's natural rhythm. I think we all know that that's happening for sure. And here's what you can see where the pulsing is happening, because it isn't just the temperature, it isn't just the barometric pressure, it's the pulsing that is really, it's not even the strength of the gigahertz, it's the pulsing, because our body will respond with resonance, and it will completely invert our health into sickness. So this is really the problem. Really lies in the pulsing. I've realized over time. And this is what it looks like when scalar HARP waves before Fukushima for the 8.9 in 2011. All frequency is 3 days in the pens. And then the control over the ionosphere. This is, I always show this film just so that you know it's really true, because it's hard for people to grasp that we now control the entire ionosphere and pretty much a magnetosphere, thanks to CERN in France and Switzerland. So this is quite the weapon system.
Chairman, and thank you to all of you this morning. Very interesting. I wanted to ask a couple questions here about HARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Several of you at the table have a little bit of a piece here. As you know, this is located up in Alaska. It's currently funded by the Air Force Research Lab. It was formerly funded by the Office of Naval Research. One of the prime customers is DARPA, which is currently running experiments at the facilities here. So questions to several of you this morning. I'm told by the president of the University of Alaska that the Air Force has pulled its support for the facility, and they're taking steps to demolish it or take it down this summer. He's making the argument that there is other opportunities for us, and is trying to find a path where the university might be able to take title to the facility. like to start with you, Dr. Prabhakar. I understand that a lot of folks here on the committee probably don't understand what HARP does. I think most Alaskans don't really know what HARP does or why the agency is involved in it. So a very brief explanation and then a more direct question. Would you be disappointed or would you lose something if HARP were to go away?
Senator Murkowski, as I think you know, one of our programs has been using the HARP facility for the research that it's pursuing. And my understanding is that we did get value out of that interaction. The P in DARPA is projects, and we're not in the business of doing the same thing forever. And so very naturally, as we conclude that work, we're going to move on to other topics. So it's not an ongoing need for DARPA, despite the fact that we had actually gotten some good value out of that infrastructure in the past.
Understood. Then to Dr. Walker and Mr. Schaefer, then, Dr. Walker, your agency is currently running the facility. I've mentioned that it's our understanding through the president of UAF that plans are to move forward and demolish the facility this summer. So the question to you is that accurate? Can you explain why? And then perhaps to both you and Mr. Schaefer, is there any benefit in exploring a potential relationship with the University of Alaska to perhaps take over the HARP?
Thank you, Senator. The Air Force has gotten great value out of HARP in the past. We took it over from the Navy and managed it and actually did a number of experiment campaigns up there and have finished our work that we're interested in doing up there. We've moving on to other ways of managing the ionosphere, which the HARP was really designed to do, was to inject energy into the ionosphere, be able to actually control it. And but that work has been completed. The Air Force.
There you go. Okay, that's what you needed to hear. Control of the ionosphere. It's hard for people to wrap their heads around that because, well, that's up in space and it's big, but that has been accomplished. Then this is from Rosalie Bertel. She was a nun, a gray nun, and an epidemiologist specializing in ionized radiation. She wrote a book called Planet Earth, The Latest Weapon of War, A Critical Study into the Military and the Environment. Excellent book, still excellent. The ability of the HARP/Space Lab/rocket combination to deliver very large amounts of energy comparable to a nuclear bomb anywhere on Earth via laser and particle beams is frightening. That still remains true. This is basically how it works. If you could imagine those two beams, they're crossing over each other, and that's a point of interference where they cross over. That's the very big energy repository right there. This would have been how it was done with 9/11. When the disintegration of iron beams, etc., occurred, and later the firemen kept puzzling over and discussing how when they walked through the detritus at the base of what had been the towers, they were constantly amazed by how heavy the dust was, how magnetized the dust was, because all of those people, or many of those people who jumped, and all the steel girders and everything else had all been dustified. It's now a term used, and that's a molecular dustification, and that's this technology. This is not like any other technology that we've had in wartime or peace or whatever. Even the atomic bomb, it doesn't even compare to this. So Uh, this this is called interferometry. You notice there are two beams there. That is enough for what happened to the towers. But for a three-dimensional hologram like the jet that supposedly ran through or into the final tower, that would require three beams, all of which are made, remember, of all those heaters up there in Alaska. All of those phased array antennas would have to be completely fired up, and they will then be forced into a one beam, two beams, three beams from three separate locations. That would be, one would be Brookhaven National Labs, I think. That's just my thought, out on Long Island. That would be the Puerto Rico site that has now been destroyed, by the way. And then a third site would have to be chosen in the Northern Hemisphere. You couldn't pull in somebody from the Southern Hemisphere for this. But they would all meet and converge on that one interference zone that would be very, very, very powerful. Okay, so this is Whitaker. See the names down here at the bottom in between the two beams, Whitaker and Zolkowski. This was the period when the ether was banished, and the scalar was coming on board, but in a very quiet, secretive way. So this is key to understanding the entire weaponizing that has gone on in the West. This tells how it works, and you would do better to look at the tape and read that material there and sort of work it out yourself. But you can see that there are two beams from somewhere on the Earth, just like in the previous in here, just like those two. And then what happens is that, you stay with the scalar waves, you stake the HARP with the ionospheric power to the Earth, and then you have a funnel that can go straight into the Earth from on high, from the ionosphere. So, one is highly positive, the Earth is always highly negative, and you get this electrification to work as a weapon system. Here's what happens when you have the artificial ionospheric mirrors. These two, you notice the two beams coming up, but these are split more in different frequencies, megahertz, 5, 8, 14, 12. And you get this mirror effect. And this has to do with also moving energy from the ionosphere. It hits the mirror at a certain angle, like trigonometry, and you place it somewhere very exact on the Earth. This is very useful for war and destruction with no fingerprints, no way to prove it, that sort of thing. Okay. This is Barry Trower, and he even includes the moving disease by the nature of its frequency with the ionosphere. So let's listen to him. He was trained
It is
in the
now
Royal
possible
Navy in microwaves
to genetically change bacteriums and virus, genetically change them. What has been developed now is if bacterium, they can lay, and yeasts, they can lay in the soil for hundreds of years in a dormant stage. And it's known by grave diggers or people who dig up old graves that It's possible when light comes on the bacterium to regenerate the bubonic plague that's been laying in the ground for several hundred years. It only wants that particular frequency and bang, it's active again. You don't need more than 2 brain cells to work out where you go from here. Viruses are neither dead nor alive. They inhabit hosts. If I put a virus inside a dormant bacteria that I know I can spring to life, I go to Norway on a holiday, or Denmark, or Sweden. I just spread the virus around the forests with the dormant bacteria, and I come back. And I can wait, if I like, 100 years, 200 years, or 2 hours. Makes no difference to me. And then all I have to do with HAARP or a similar device is put the frequency, the microwave frequency off the ionosphere down onto Norway. Whenever I feel like it, the virus will spring to life because their host has sprung to life. This is where we are. So countries can now, just by introducing bacteriums and viruses and whatever, they can totally devastate the economic possibilities of another country.
Yeah. And Barry owns no cell phone, no TV, no computer. If you want to talk to him, you have to write him a letter or show up at his door. Because he knows how dangerous this technology is. Here's what our world looks like if we could see it. We're just kind of living under electromagnetic mush. GMOs are synthetic foods. I did go this far to talk about GMOs because I'm so concerned that people don't really realize what the danger of GMOs is, because most people eat GMOs. And the problem is that the seed itself for GMOs is what we call a terminator seed. It's sterile. It is activated for a time enough to get a crop growing. And then at some point, once the crop is grown, then the seed will actually turn off. Well, gosh, if that isn't technology, I don't know what else it could be. It's definitely not the seed of nature. And it has no biophoton energy. You will not find any in it. So the eating of food, now you get into Rudolf Steiner territory, where he has some very interesting things to say about food. And the reason I think it's worked as well as it has, given that it's pretty much been dead food that a lot of people eat, and it doesn't have to be McDonald's. It can be, most restaurants use GMOs because they're cheaper. And if you eat out a lot, then you've pretty much been eating non-food for all that time. Steiner says, interestingly, that it's not so much the nutrients in the food that make us grow and make us live a healthy, productive life, as it is the frequency that it takes you, the energy that it takes you to break the food down. And that's really interesting. And I'm going to talk about that in this synthetic biology book that I'm writing, because I'm sure that's how so many years have gone by since Monsanto started in this country the GMO terminator seed fields, the smart fields as they're called now. If you see this sign on fruit or vegetables, don't buy it. It's artificial food. It's not it's not natural in any way. And they're calling it organic. How about that? Here are the red is where all the countries are that wherein if you bring GMOs into the country, you're looking at a felony and will probably go to prison. So that's all of Russia. And it looks like part of China, maybe Manchuria. And then a few countries here and there, and a bit of Western Europe. Like I will buy a spaghetti sauce now and then made in Italy, because I know that they do not have GMO, or at least I think I know that they do not have GMO tomatoes. So this is I highly recommend. I've eaten organic foods despite what's coming down from the sky. It's mainly because of the seed that is used to grow the organic food that I eat organic. It's not so much the skin of the organic food because of what's coming down from and the constant radioactivity of non-ionized radiation coming down from the satellites. So this is our condition, and we have to take it into account if we want to have a good life and a meaningful life despite this extraordinary evil technology. And then this is good. Remote neuromonitoring, mind control from satellite. I have a few good pictures in two of the books regarding what you can have happening right in your own apartment as a weaponized plasma that does serious mind control damage to you. So let's see. Then there's thought-controlled nanoscale robots in a living host. And then how Wi-Fi views your WBAN, your wireless body area network. And the wireless body area network, like I look at this one, and I assume what I'm looking at is maybe part of the etheric, but you see the light around, like the fellow in the middle frame, you see the light around his body. I used to, when I'd sit in grade school in New York, when I was a kid in the 50s, I used to amuse myself by watching the light around people's bodies, not the aura, but that thin white layer around there. That's the etheric. The etheric used to stick out from our bodies pretty far, but now it's very much the same shape as our physical body, but maybe with an inch or two that are around the body as a white light. And then from there you go into the aura. And I normally can't see auras other than, in a couple of people I've seen them. So here we're in the Sabrina Wallace territory, and I am definitely studying her. I highly recommend that you study her work on the WBAN so that you can constantly think of yourself in those terms, confronting the electromagnetism that is just about everywhere you go. And then this requires just breaking down. You've got the laptop, you've got the tower, you've got the internet, cell phone, satellite. All of the system is really hooked up. You see the medical unit there. That's the medical system now they have where you're online and the doctor can just release drugs in your body while you're online, can see do a readout of your vitals to see how you're doing, etc. It's all done. It's all a done deal now. And then here, more on that, of how that works. All these little items that we are in the microscopy group, we're seeing many of these entities in the body. And as it says at the top, this diagram shows all the components that are introduced with each inoculation. Together, they act as a network for monitoring the human body. Okay. And then I go back to the history, to some history. When Mr. Trump was in office the first time, he went to Saudi Arabia and he had this sort of mythical, magical moment where they all put their hands on well, what would you call it? A magical globe of some sort where you can see the future. And they're obviously indicating that, they're going to work together on some level. And it's, I've got a few pictures in this of which the First Lady shows up. And she has an interesting role in these. It's almost like she's some sort of soothsayer or something, some sort of feminine visitation on on what is going on. And the one that is next of this series for me was this one, in which we have a Freemason framing for the United States, which is pretty much utterly run by the Freemasons, and I would have to add the Knights of Malta and the Jesuits, all secret societies. And President Trump here is playing Hiram Abiff, which is definitely a figure of Freemasonry, has been for thousands of years. And beside him are his three apprentices, and these billionaires from California, in what's it called, what is it, that valley, Silicon Valley. And this was definitely staged, no question in my mind, to announce the Project Stargate AI. This is a big moment. That's why it's framed as a Freemason moment. Who knows what the Freemasons were doing? Note the date, January 22nd. That's 122, and then 2025. So then this is pretty much my final slide. No virus, just frequencies resonating throughout the atmosphere and our bodies and brains. Natural molecular biology has been transformed into digital synthetic biology, whose frequencies can now be transmitted by 5G, 6G systems into the human body and brain. This has tremendous repercussions for those of us who wish to remain human. Wean yourselves from allopathic medicine and the big pharma cartel. There's my books. The only other thing I'll read, which I think you deserve to know, I kept this pretty much personal for many years, is that possibly, this is my statement, possibly because my father was a PhD inorganic chemist working for U.S. Navy intelligence, both the ONI and ONR Science Division. His records are sealed unto perpetuity in Washington, D.C., Perhaps for this reason, I've spent 20 years tracking down what highly classified geoengineering is really up to. Lies and cover stories continue to this day, thanks to the National Security Act of 1947 and the primacy of the CIA. My friend and colleague, independent scientist Clifford Carnicom's impeccable work on the epigenetic assault on nature and Homo sapiens that he began documenting in the late 1990s remains marginalized, as are my books, all in the silent name of plausible deniability. Just that paragraph, I think, is all I need to read. But I did want you to know that, you have to figure out why your destiny has ended up in a certain place. And it often, the clues are in your childhood.